Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to a new video. In this video, we're just going to cover a topic that's been brought up in Discord. This question was asked by Michael, so hey Michael. I hope I said your name right, but yep. Effectively, what they'd like is they'd like a top-down shooter in the Advanced Locomotion System. So the Advanced Locomotion System is a brilliant project which has been put together, and as the name suggests, it focuses around character movement. There's a very nice blueprint put together which sort of focuses on movement. You've got roll, you've got climb, you've got moving with weapons. There's different camera modes, but they would like a top-down shooter style. So I'm going to create the project. I'm going to call it TDS. I'm going to select engine 5, but I am going to then upgrade it to 5.11 because that's what I'm currently working in. So I'll nip to my library now, scroll up, let's find TDS, let's open that. It will probably ask me, yep, so let's select 5.11. That'll boot up. So yeah, as I said, if you've never used the Advanced Locomotion System before, I highly recommend. It's free, so you've no reason not to try it at least, unless you've no intention of making any type of movement game or a a game with a character in it. So if I hit play, I'll just give you a quick rundown. So you've got sprint, jump, rolls, you've got crouch, if I remember. What's the button for crouch? Oh, one alt. You've got a ragdoll, which is really nice because you can trigger that if you get shot. You've got a mantle. What else have you got? So you can pick which side of your character you're on. You can hold C and go into first person mode. And there's a few other bits and pieces that you can do with it. One other thing is it comes with this sort of menu which you can go through some other poses that it's already got set up for you. Injured, for example. I've got a video on, I've got a couple of videos on the Advanced Locomotion System actually, where when you shoot somebody they'll go into this injured state for a period of time and then switch back. So there's weapons as well which we're going to use and add some weapon fire to it, some line traces, but there's all sorts of bits and pieces. So there's some really nice features in here. So if you've never used it, please download it. But anyway, we're getting distracted by the actual pack itself. So we're going to create a TDS type setup. Now, I'm not going to go into it too much. I don't want to go too far into it. I just want to get some bases started so I can get some feedback from Discord, and then I'll probably progress from there. But firstly, we're going to go into the Advanced Locomotion pack, blueprints, character logic, and then here's our character. So this is the actual character that we use. So when we press play, that's the character that runs around, but this is made from a parent class, a base class. Now this base class contains the majority of the logic which makes this character possible. So there's a lot going on here. There's a few event graphs down here, and this is a very big blueprint. You can get lost in all of the information. We're not going to cover it in this video because that'll be too long, but there's a lot going on. But we are going to need to edit the parent class at some point, so we'll keep it open. And also let's open up the ALS Animman, and that's the character that you see. Again, I've got some videos where we talk about changing the mesh, which to be honest I might just do quickly. I'm just going to open up the Epic Store, go to my library and scroll down to the packs, and I think if I just change the category from all to characters, there's here a stylized character pack, add that to my project, TDS, here we go, TDS, add to project. I've already downloaded it, so this should take just a few minutes. So we go. And what we'll do is, just for effect, I'll go into the Animman. I'm going to select body mesh, and I'm going to change this to the pack that I've just added. So we'll go for the full body character. We'll go for this one. Well, that looks cool. So because obviously this character is now loading in, we actually just want to remove the Animman from here. So we'll clear that. Maybe we won't clear it. We'll set it to not visible. Visible, not visible. So there's my dude. So we hit compile now, and obviously once my shaders don't seem to render too quickly when I'm recording, but there's our dude, and he functions just as he did before, which is nice. So there you go, you've got another tutorial in one there. I've got a video on that, but obviously you don't need to watch that now. Here's our character. Let's create the follow camera. So go back to the character logic, I'm going to right click, I'm going to create a new blueprint class. It's going to be an actor. This is going to be called BP underscore follow cam. Open that up. Now I'm going to keep the default scene route because I don't really need to overcomplicate this, but I'm going to add a spring arm which is required to hold the camera, and then with the spring arm selected we're going to add a camera. So select camera. So as you can see we've got a camera on the end of a spring arm. Now to get that top down feel we're going to rotate this up to at least 40 degrees because anything less than that is more of just an overhead third person rather than top down. And we're also going to adjust the length of the arm, the target arm length, to maybe about 700. Hit compile. Now what we're going to do is nip over to the event graph. We need to get this to follow our player in the world. So on event begin play, what we're going to do is we're going to cast to ALS underscore animman. So ALS animman character BP, which should be the same name as the one we've had open just a moment ago. So select that. I'm just going to delete these two because they're bugging me. That requires an object, but because this is going to be our player, we can just do get player character. That'll take it from player index 0. Now, something I've recently learned that it was a bit of a mistake on my part actually. I misunderstood it like a lot of people on the internet misunderstood it. This player index 0, so on multiplayer games when you join you become player 0. I misunderstood that as multiple people join the index changes, but it doesn't. When you join a server you're always 0, so this code will still work on multiplayer and single player games. So there's that. I've probably said that in a few previous videos, like try and avoid using this on multiplayer. That was a misunderstanding actually. Anyway, as that character, we want to promote this to a variable so we can get a reference to it. We'll do it in event begin play, so then we're not casting to the character every tick. And then with that, that's absolutely fine. What we do need to do every tick though, let's grab the tick event, is we need to update the location of our camera to be in the position of the player. So on event tick, what we want to do is we want to set world location, and we want to do that on the default scene route, purely because the default scene route's in the center of our is in the default position effectively. Back to the event graph. And anything that's attached to the default scene route will move along with it, which all of our stuff is. You could just move the spring arm, but at this point there's probably no point. Default scene route, and we need to get a new location. So our new location is going to come from our character. So grab our reference down here, so as animman, get actor location, and that's going to become our new location. And to be honest, for the follow camera, that is pretty much it. Hit compile. Now that's not going to do anything just yet because we've not actually told this system to use this camera rather than the cameras that are attached to the player. But what we will need to do is drag this camera into the world, and make sure you keep it selected, because if you don't have the camera selected, this next bit is not going to work all that well. So with the camera selected, we're going to go to level blueprint. So open up the blueprints menu, open up level blueprint, and because you've got that camera selected, if you right click you'll see create a reference to follow cam. So we'll keep that. Now what we want to do on event begin player is we want to assign this camera to our character. Now cameras are assigned to player controllers, so get player controller. From the return value we can type in set view target with blend, so we'll set that. Drag off the event begin player, plug that in. So the target's our controller, and the new view target is going to be our camera. Now if you like to, you can set a blend time, but it's absolutely pointless because we want it to be instant right at the beginning of the game. Hit compile. We don't need this level blueprint anymore, so I'm just going to save and close that. And realistically, we don't need the camera. We'll keep it open though, just in case we're not happy with how things look, and we can adjust that as and when. But for now, what's going to happen is we're going to press play. This camera is going to snap to our actor and should activate. So if I hit play, you can see now I've got this top-down feel. The problem is though, my character can still now look up and down, and I mean, I'm going to keep the move left to right because I'm not too sure how Michael from Discord wants it to function. But for now, I'm just going to disable the up and down looking because you don't really need that on a top-down shooter. You expect on a top-down shooter that they're always looking straight. But in terms of the camera position, I'm quite happy with that. Obviously, you adjust that as you will. You might want it to be a bit more vertical. You might want it to be a bit more zoomed out. You go and adjust that. So again, you can adjust that with a spring arm length and rotation, and that's pretty much it, to be honest. Alternatively, you can also adjust the camera, which will be at the end of the spring arm. However, I would probably advise against moving the camera's location, just because sometimes moving it around can cause a bit of unnecessary wobble. But for me, that's fine so far. Next things next, we're going to deactivate the up and down movement so we can't look. So just to be clear, we're actually now in the base character class, so this is the parent. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to scroll in actually. On the left here you'll see player input graph. This is the main event graph, but all the player inputs have been made on a different graph entirely just to keep inputs separate. So we're going to double click that, and this is all of our inputs in one place. If we scroll in, at the very top you'll see camera inputs. We've got our look left and right and look up and down. We don't want to be able to look up and down, so we will deactivate that. I'm not going to delete it because it's nice to have the code here. It's not going to run, so it's not going to affect your performance. I'm just going to deactivate it. Hit compile, hit play, and now if I move the mouse up and down, the character's not moving around, but it can still move left and right. So depending on how you want yours set up, this is basically as far as we can go with that. I'm kind of stuck on how far I can go before I know what the request is. But so far we've got a top-down camera and we've limited up and down movement. So the next thing we need to do is add some weapon fire. So I'm going to close the parent class for now because I only want to add weapon fire to our sort of player character. So in the event graph, what I'm going to do is just over here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to put I feel like I should explain what I'm about to do first. So in this advanced locomotion system, if you hold Q, you get this menu and you can equip a rifle. So my character's holding a rifle now, and I can switch to a pistol if I like. But either way, he's now holding an equipped item. So what I want to do is, I only want to be able to shoot if he's aiming. So at the moment he won't be able to shoot. But if I right click and aim, I want shoot to be enabled. And I only want him to be able to shoot if he's actually holding a weapon, because I can hold the right mouse button and aim in theory, but with nothing in my hand, and I don't want to be able to shoot them. So a couple of things I'm going to do. First, I'm just going to do right mouse button. Now another way as well you could probably do with setting up inputs in the project settings, so then these are properly made, or using the new advanced input system. However, just to speed things up, I'm going to skip over that and just hard code right mouse button. I'm also going to need a left mouse button afterwards, so I'll just grab that now. So for my right mouse button, effectively I'm going to create a variable just to check if the right mouse button's held. I'm considered aiming, So aiming question mark, because it's a boolean. I don't mind putting question marks on booleans, but avoid it if you do. It still works, and I know it's a question. So when the right mouse button's pressed, is aiming true? Yes. If when I release it, my aiming is not true. So that's as simple as that. You could go a bit further than this and say if there's a skeletal mesh and your right mouse button's pressed, but for the sake of it, I'm not going to do that at this point. So my check on my left mouse button is, are we aiming? So if we're aiming is true, then we can proceed. The next check I want to do is, if you look in the hierarchy here, that there's the mesh, then there's a held object, a skeletal mesh and static mesh. The reason there's two is because the weapons are actually considered skeletal meshes, which is good because they've got bones, you can put a magazine, socket and stuff like that. And then static meshes, you've got other stuff like torches and binoculars and stuff like that. We're only interested in skeletal meshes because that's where the weapons are. So what I'll do is I'll drag that out, and I just want to do a few checks basically. I'm just going to do an is valid on the skeletal mesh. For any reason that this gets removed, I don't want this to be able to function because that means there's nothing held. But I want to go a bit further than that. So if that's true, check to see if my mesh is valid. However, I also want to make sure that I've got an asset in that mesh. So get skeletal mesh asset is, what's this? It's going to complain at me. So it's a read only, so that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And I want to do an is valid on that. The reason I'm doing both is because sometimes this doesn't capture it and you can start shooting with binoculars and stuff like that. But is there an actual asset loaded into it? So what I mean by that is this skeletal mesh here exists. It exists. So this valid may be true. However, if there's nothing equipped, that means you can shoot unarmed. So we'll just get the mesh asset, and obviously that's not valid because there's nothing there. But when we equip it in the game, this will become a weapon. So now it will be valid, but I don't want to do that because I'll be permanently equipped. So once that's valid, then we can proceed. So this is where we're going to do the line trace now. So we're going to need a line trace by channel. So not multi-trace, line trace by channel. We're going to drag off the is valid, and we're going to start the line trace. So, couple of ways to do line traces. However, I have got a bit of background information from Discord. This person would like the line trace to come from the barrel and go straight out, sort of parallel to the floor. So that's given me enough information to work on. So what I'm going to do is this skeletal mesh is probably going to be a rifle or a pistol or something like that. Now I've just selected that for a moment because I want to browse to it. I'm going to open that up, but before I forget, I'm going to nip back and I'm just going to clear that, so that remains none. I'm going to hit compile there. I'm going to go back to my weapon. Now I just want to show you on these weapons, and on any weapon that you add to the game, I'd recommend you have something like this. You can see all of the skeleton here. So we've got a magazine, we've got a sights, but we've got a muzzle most importantly. And we can grab that muzzle location and say start our line trace from here. So we're going to do that. So because we know it's muzzle, it's in lowercase, so that's good to know. What we're going to do is from the skeletal mesh, I guess we can drag from here, we can say get socket bone name. Oh no, sorry, socket location. I almost messed up then. So we can delete that because it came with it. So get socket location of the skeletal mesh, and we want muzzle. So that's going to be a start location. So that's neat. Now what we want to do is we want to get this location, add some distance to it, and then say that's where our end position is going to be. And if you want to proper lock off the height of it, we'll get to that in a minute, but we can sort of remove the height aspect of it and lock it to like a shoulder position or something like that. But I'll get to that. So for our socket, for our end position, we need some distance on this. For that, what I find to be the best solution is, typically if you've got any context with Unreal, in Unreal the coordinate system, if I select this, typically X is forward. Yeah, so typically items that are forward are X. I think on like all of the templates, all of the like sorts of starter projects, most of the time X is forward. So if you do, or in the sort of coordinate system in Unreal, X is typically forward. If you was to try and find which is my forward facing direction, you'd use a node called getForwardVector, and that'll give you a vector of basically which way is pointing forward in basis of my character. Because this is actually using the Y as a forward vector, we're going to use what's called the getRightVector. I may have not needed to over-explain that, but I have. Just in case you're wondering why is he using right vector, that doesn't make sense. So from the skeletal mesh, we're going to get right vector. And again, because the coordinate system's sort of offset by 90, the right vector is actually going to tell us which way is forward for this set of characters. So if you use get forward vector and you realise that my gun's shooting sideways, use the get right vector. So we now know which way is forward. What we want to do is we want to add the distance to that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a multiply. We're going to convert this multiply node to a float, so we can sort of times it by a distance. I'm going to promote this to a variable. I'm going to call it weapon range. Weapon range. I'm just going to hit compile so that I can edit this default value. I'm going to set it to 1500, just as a sort of like medium short range weapon. Then what we want to do is we want to add this distance to our start location, and that'll become our end location. So from our start location, do the add node, add our distance and our direction to the starting location, and that should become our end location. So now in the line trace, I'm going to set the draw debug type to for duration. I'm just going to drop down and make sure that it's 5, which it should be because that's the default, and I'm just going to give it a quick test. So we're checking, are we aiming? Do I actually have a weapon in my hand or a mesh? Get its barrel location or its muzzle location and shoot from that forward by 1500. So run around, switch to a rifle. I'm now aiming, and when I click, I have a line trace coming from the end of my gun, no matter what. Neat. So now you can set up some sort of type of aiming system. Well, I don't know, you might have a... You'll have to explain to me how you want the aiming system to work, but that's effectively it. However, to make sure that the end of the trace is always at the same height, another way you can go around it is, what you can do is break this vector here, and what you can do is we can split it, so we've got an X, a Y and a Z. What we can actually do is let's get our body mesh and get socket location. Now if I go to this body, let's search that, go to the body and look on the skeleton. If I go to like the spine, or maybe spinal 2, spinal 3 is pretty good. This is kind of like shoulder height, so that's going to be around where the gun is going to be. So I'm going to use spinal 3. Sorry, I'm going to go back to my thing. So in non-spine_03, I'm going to split this because I only want the the height of that. I don't care about the actual location of it, I just care about what height is that sat at. What we're going to do now is we're going to make a vector. So drag off the end trace, make vector down at the bottom. We're going to make that from the X and the Y of our barrel. But we want to take the height from our player. Hit compile, hit player, and rifle. And now the end of that trace will always be at the same height as what your shoulder will be. So that last bit there is probably not necessary for the majority of people. It was just discussed in Discord of like keeping it at the same height all the time. That is a way of keeping the end of the trace at the same height all the time. And yeah, that's pretty much it so far, because really to continue I need a bit more information, so hopefully once I post this will help a few of you sort of getting started with like that top-down vibe, and then hopefully I'll get a response in Discord and we can build this a little bit further. So thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this, please consider giving me a thumbs up, a like. If you want to see more stuff like this, consider subscribing. Check out the channel. I've made hundreds of videos now, ranging on all sorts of stuff, so just have a scroll through, you might find something you like. If you need some help, or if there's any projects you want me to have a look at, or anything like that, consider joining Discord. Obviously this video was made possible because of Discord. You know, somebody asked a question, it was just better to make a quick video about it. Who knows, I might make a video that, you know, of something that you've requested. But that's pretty much it for now. I'm going to stop talking, so thank you for watching and I'll see you in another video.